Welcome back to the Ben and Rich YouTube channel. Well, we've been talking about the LS swapped K1500. It's that time, folks. We're gonna pull this bad unit in here in just a hot minute, start the teardown. But I wanted to show you guys, she runs. And she actually runs good. He wants more power. You can't blame a guy for wanting to haul ass, you know, or spin these big knobby ass tires. But, I mean, let's look here. What do we got? We got, you know, a little over 40 PSI oil pressure, idling good, charging good. You're asking yourself, why would you tear apart a perfectly good truck? Well, to make it better, of course, right? So let's get this bad unit in. Let's show you what we got. Well, guys, it's the next day. We wanted to let her kind of drip dry a little bit. She's been out in the snow for a little while. But it is today. We're pulling the old 350 out and we're sticking in this bad unit. So, little rundown. She is a Gen 3 5.3, so that would be 99 to 06-ish, right around there before they transitioned into the 58X style engines. This is a fresh 20 over with a Elgin Sloppy Stage 2 E1840P, and then some Pack 1218 springs to top her off, and that should give her some thump. So we'll go through a quick parts list for you, some of the fun stuff here before we get into the dirty work. You know, that's always good. So I did order, like we said before, she's a manual. So we got a new flywheel, we got a new clutch kit and everything, and we'll have to go through setting that stuff up as well, because we're putting an LS with an older transmission. We ran into that with the LTD. You got to shim out the throw-up bearing. The LTD was an external slave, so we just actually put a gob of weld on the end of the old push rod, and that worked out. This one here being an internal slave, we got a hold of our friends over at TIC Performance and ordered up a shim kit, and then they were kind enough to send me a little pamphlet on how to go ahead and measure that. So basically we'll measure off the back of the bell housing mounting flange on the engine, to the back of the fingers, on the pressure plate, and we'll go through all that stuff when we get there. We got a little bit of time before then. We did get our brand new ski wiring harness off eBay. It's difficult to find a good quality harness, so it took me a minute, but we did find one. So, motor mounts, right? So we got the super sliders. They're very similar to the old Dirty Dingos. We use them on the LTD. We use them on a lot of these trucks and swaps and stuff like that. We've done, this will be, the third one of those we're doing. Our buddy Jeremy, he's got a 3/4 ton Chevy we put a 6-liter in. That was a diesel. And then he's got a Indianapolis Pace truck from like 93. We put a 5.3 in that. So we're pretty familiar with that. It's just our first avenue with the internal slave NV3500. We got some hoses from the past that we knew. Just get the upper LS hose, the lower hose for the truck at hand. Got some bolt kits for our pressure plates to flywheel, and then we also got our flywheel to motor. So what's left for this unit, with our engine stand here, we couldn't get the rear main seal in. The cover is just loosely bolted on. So we're gonna go ahead and get the rear seal installed in that, and then we'll get the whole clutch assembly bolted onto that. But we'll do that in a minute. So, let's get the hood. Let's pop the hood.
Pop the hood.
All right. So a handful of years ago, we did put a 350 in this. So believe it or not, this actually was a 305 truck, but it is 350 right now. There she is in all her glory. And you ask yourself, why are we taking apart a truck that runs and drives and all that stuff? Guys, you know the game. And we mentioned it before. We want it to run good and go fast and all that good stuff. So, we're gonna start tearing this unit out. The plan is, by day's end, is that we're gonna have this motor out and that motor sitting in the hole. And we're gonna see if we can wrap the video up with that unit stuffed in here. It will be probably a 2 to 3 part series of this, just because of, we want to keep good content for you. We don't have to be boring, right? With me talking the whole time, all that fancy shit. So you'll see it get in there, and then we'll probably get it fired up and wire it, and then maybe the exhaust will be the last video, or maybe that'll be two-part. We'll see, we'll see. So let's get pulling this unit out. All right, step one, guys, pull your battery. I mean, we don't need it in here anyways. Mine, you know, don't want to have no issues with that. We're also gonna take and put it in the air first. So what I like to do, just because I don't like getting antifreeze dripped on me and all that stuff, we'll get it on, you know, get it up in the air, pull our bell housing bolts, cut the exhaust off, all that stuff, get that out of the way, maybe even the motor mount bolts, get everything done, and then we'll support the transmission, probably the ratchet strap or something across the bottom so it kind of hangs there. And then when we go to pluck this dude out of there, we ain't gotta go back underneath till we're ready to put the new one in, or after we put the new one in. So she's going up. All right, she's up in the air. Save you guys some of the boring stuff. You know how to pull a motor, so I don't want to feed it all that crap. You want to see the good stuff. But we did get the exhaust cut out of the way. We did get the starter out of the way. So these starter wires we're going to reuse. Obviously, that's going to be our trigger and our power for the starter. But, you know, something I wanted to mention to you guys. This is one of the, I mean, other than the manual part that throws a little variable in. But by all means, this is the easiest LS swap. And the reason is, let me give you a quick explanation. It's already got a high pressure fuel pump that saves you there, right? The power steering pump is a Saginaw style power steering pump between a Vortec and an LS. Line hooks right up. Other than the super slider motor mounts, they drop right into the factory clamshells. The oil pan fits, the exhaust manifolds fit. So if you're ever gonna get into an LS swap and you wanna just dabble, right? Get yourself a 96 to 99 OBS, or 98 and a half, whatever you want to say. But get yourself an OBS truck that's already multi-port with a Vortec. Gravy, right? And you're going to see it happen. So I'm going to get that rest of that stuff unbuttoned under there. We'll chime back in when we're hopefully extracting this motor out of the way here. Show you a little more up top too. Something before I lowered it down I wanted to mention real fast, and this you may run into. So what we are dealing with right now, so I did pull a couple bolts loose on the fan shroud on the bottom, get them out of your way. Then we'll have a couple bolts up top. And then we are removing bell housing bolts and all that boring stuff. Like I said, we don't, that stuff you guys know how to do. If you're doing an LS swap, you should know how to pull an engine, I would hope. If not, it's all nuts and bolts. But something that is gonna affect us here in a little bit that I just recognized. So, if you look at the power steering pump, get you good lighting here. So if you see this guy here, let me get you a little better closer look. So that is electronic variable assist steering. So 97 to 97, 98, you know, those had it. 96 did not. That's where it's critical. So you're gonna wanna get either, because our computer's not gonna control that anymore. You know, there is a wire that runs to the PCM for that. We're not running that, right? We're running an LS swap with a aftermarket harness. So what we gotta get is we gotta get a 96 power steering hose for a 96. 96 did not have Evo steering, so that hose will curl around the back and hook right to that. Now you might be able to get away with your donor power steering line. It's all the same fittings, right? We said this is the world's easiest LS swap. But just something to think about when you're dealing with your power steering. Now you could transfer all that stuff to your new pump, but it's just not gonna work properly. So we're just gonna completely delete it all together, and it'll just have normal steering, not the super easy at idle type stuff. So cool, let's get back to her. All right, so we got the transmission strapped up, our bell housing bolts out. We're ready to start tearing this top apart. We're gonna put you guys aerial, do a little time lapse tearing this down, but there's a few things I wanted to mention before we get into that. I know we've been doing a lot of yakking, but I wanna be step by step with you guys as much as possible. So this is the bell housing bolt out of the this truck here. So keep in mind, small block Chevys are a 3/8/16. Your LSs are a 10/1/5. So make sure you get the bell housing bolts out of the donor vehicle. Any of that stuff like that is important to keep. So if you get a donor engine or a donor truck, keep all that stuff. Huge. So let's go ahead and start pulling some of this stuff out of the way. And we're gonna go ahead and reuse our radiator. And we're actually gonna do away with the air conditioning. It hasn't been hooked up for a while. This is just his farm truck toy. So no AC, no cruise. That stuff's all getting terminated with it. just to kind of keep it bare bones and give them enough smoke so we can get through the mud. Always the best part of pulling the lower radiator hose. You can never make it the damn bucket. Oh my goodness, guys. Well, friends, that's how you pull a Vortec 350 out of your OBS. Wasn't that big of a deal, honestly, and being a manual makes it nice because you're not dealing with torque converter bolts, right? You don't need those. So this thing here is hopefully gonna live its days off in another truck because it did run good. Like I said, just not what we're hoping for. But you can see we're gonna have to get down in there. We got to deal with shimming the throw-out bearing slave cylinder assembly. I'll give you a little better explanation here shortly, but basically the depth from here to here on a small block Chevy versus an LS is about 40 thousandths difference. 400 thousandths difference, I think is what it was. So it's like that much anyways. And that spacing is critical because, not for starter spacing, but to actually bring the throwout bearing further out to make up for this difference here. So that's why we're going to go ahead and measure, like we were saying earlier, with Tick Performance's information. We're going to show you how to measure that. And then we do have the new slave cylinder we're going to toss in it. And at that point, we're going to go ahead and shim that out accordingly and get that LS set back in here. But we're going to get this guy down on the ground, start mounting the clutch and everything up to the new engine. Because remember, we're going to do the rear seal, tighten the rear cover, and then we're going to mount the pressure plate throwout bearing, pilot bearing. There we go. Had a thing. Man, tell me, it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, we're going to mount everything on the back of the LS there, and then I think we're going to start working on there because I want to get this thing in the hole here shortly. So let's go now. All right, so let's take a look at this throwout bearing, clutch release, whatever you want to call it, slave cylinder. So the idea is you put shims behind this guy to bring it out the difference that is, that we measure up and we create here in a few. First thing though, we're going to change this guy. We ended up ordering a clutch kit for a 0405 half ton with a 4.8. Still an NV 3500, so everything is the same. It even comes with the right throwout bearing, everything, or pilot bearing, all that stuff. But this portion is different. The quick disconnect is here on the older ones, and then the other one gives you a lead with that fitting on the outside, so you're not dealing with it in here. But I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can get this popped out. So if you look, let me get you a better angle. Oh, it's hard to see with this light, but there is a plastic sleeve, kind of like a shark bite that shoves in to release those fingers. And after we do that, we can pull that line off, and that'll also help with, if I remember right, they got a check valve, so the fluid should not leak out of the line when we disconnect that. So we're gonna work on that real quick, get this slave cylinder out, and then we gotta go ahead and mount the new one in, and then we start measuring. So let's get plucking. There we go. Okay, so differences in the newer clutch slave and the older one. So the height is the same. The bolt spread is the same. Now this one is made of plastic, which I don't know what they were thinking there, but I guess it works, you know. All right, so real quick, while we got the motor on the stand here, before we get to hanging it off a chain, you know, for the clutch, I wanted to show you the motor mounts we're using. So I think Dirty Dingo created them back in the day, and there's been enough people that have cloned them. But you can buy these online for like 30 bucks. I think Dirty Dingos are like 100 or something. But anyways, what's nice about these mounts here, they give you about 4 inches of adjustability, slide it back and forth, and side to side, you know, an inch. What's cool about that is you literally can leave the transmission and your drive line all in the stock location, which is awesome, guys. That is huge. So we literally set the engine down in the hole, and then we slide it back till the bell housing is tight, right? And then we just tighten these bolts up to the motor. And then you're not messing with drive shafts or any of that BS. I mean, this is the way to go if you're not making a ton of steam. So essentially that's what you get here. We get 4 inches of movement, and then what I do, like we were talking earlier, is I leave them kind of loose so this can move around. And then obviously you snug up the bell housing bolts, and I try to do these last, because that way everything is tight, it's done, and then you reach up in there and just tighten them up and you know it's in the right spot. Another thing too, if you guys noticed, this is a Gen 3 pan, which is 99 to 06. This is your low oil sensor. Now, it's a failure to, you know, it's a potential failure for leaks. I like to do away with them. It is a M20 by 1.5 oil drain plug. M20 by 1.5. Now, ICT Billet does make a cool, nice looking premium one, or you can go to the auto parts store and just get yourself a drain plug like I did. Works well too. But yeah, let's get to this clutch. All right, guys, so we're down to the nitty gritty here. We got to put the rear main seal in. We're going to put our pilot bearing in. And this is like an LS7 style, and this did come with our kit as well. The one thing, if any of you guys realize this or watch this or know, why do all the LS7 bearings have a cut in them? So I had a guy tell me one time that that is a mark to show you how much to leave the bearing hanging out of the crank. That doesn't make much sense to me, but that was a story I heard. All right, so I usually take a screwdriver and graciously tap around the edge. Again, probably not up to somebody's standards, but it works, it's in. LS7 throw-up bearing, or I keep saying damn throw-up bearing, pilot bearing. So get that dude partially in there. And obviously you don't want to risk hitting the center, so I like to center it a little bit. And to give yourself a socket that's the same diameter. And just watch as you drive that guy in there. Take your blowgun, kind of clean out your threads. All right. So there's an extra hole on an LS crank. It's kind of just an alignment for alignment's sake. There's nothing goes in it. So then we're going to take our flywheel. Again, this would just be a 4/8. What's nice about LS is there's zero balance. So zero balance flywheel could be off a 6.2, a 4/8, 5.3, it doesn't matter. So as long as you line up the hole, you got yourself a flywheel. So I did have a Moroso number for bolts. They were too long, unfortunately. So I checked out the factory ones, and you still get more than a 1/2 inch of thread out of these factory bolts. So I'm gonna go ahead and use those. You may say it's wrong or right. That's just what I'm doing. I think it'll be just fine. I mean, it's more than a 1/2 inch of threads for contact, and there's 6 of them. So I like to put a little thread locker on it. All right, so yeah, you probably should do these in 3 stages, but the final torque is 74 foot-pounds. Once we get there, 74, and you're wondering how you're gonna hold it. take yourself a pry bar, usually what I use. You're kind of fighting yourself against yourself, but this motor's pretty tight, so it should be pretty easy to achieve. There's one, and do your star pattern. All right, then go ahead and clean your mounting surface. You don't want any of that packing oil or whatever they put on their Cosmoline or whatever. You don't want that interfering with the pressure plate or your clutch disc. That material with oil saturation, not good. So you can really go only one way. You put it backwards, it's not gonna sit flush, okay? It's because of your spring provision here. So you got your tool, insert that on there, and it should kind of just hang here for now. And then we got ARP flex plate bolts. Again, we couldn't steal them off the small block over there, you know, because them are all 3/8, so everything here is metric. Another thing too, if you guys aren't familiar with the LS's, or you probably are if you're watching this video, but you never know. You see right here, there's no bolt hole. You got your normal small block bell housing, but this guy's empty. Well, that's because there's a head bolt that comes down right through there. So what they did is they utilized the bolt on top, where you'll see a lot of the newer transmissions, the 6Ls and stuff like that, use a top bolt, and even the later 4L60s. So we are gonna be lacking one bell housing bolt. So when I go to finally tighten this up, I always like to hold just a little bit of pressure upward on it, because right now it's got the weight of it kind of leaning down. So if you hold a little pressure, you can actually see it kind of center itself. These are torqued at 50 foot-pounds, these pressure plate bolts, because of well, we're using ARP anyways, so they do advise using the ARP assembly lube, but we don't have any, so we're going dry.
That's what she said.
All right, so torque down, slight drag. That's what you're looking for. So now we're going to show you how to measure. Basically, we're going to call it point A and point B. Point B is going to be up there. Point A, basically, we're going to take and measure from here to the depth of these fingers. All right, guys, I'm going to do my best here to show you on camera, but we got our $5 Amazonian calipers. We're in inches. So right there is flush against the pressure plate and flush against the back of the bell housing. So we are looking at, wow, yeah, I would say 3.5 is pretty close, huh? All right, just to double check, right at that mark, we're flush against there. We're sitting at 3.5. All right, so I'm getting 3.5 from basically this dimension to here, and then across here you would subtract, because obviously we can't measure inward, and I'm getting 350 thou, so totaling 3.14 is where the bearing would rest here. So now we got to go up to there real quick with the new one on, compress it, and we'll show you that real fast here. You know, I really feel bad for the guys that got to do this on their back, because this is a pain in the ass by myself here. Let alone with my precision tape measure here. By all means, guys, that was a lot of screwing around, but we did come to a conclusion. At the end of the day, we ended up adding 300 thousandths, so 0.300 in shims behind that. We got her all bolted up. It's time to set the motor in after 7 long hours of measuring. So let's lower it down. All right, look how well them sit in there. Now I know you guys may say, especially the old school guys that know, the old clamshell mounts used to kind of set on those dowels there. and they would help support the engine, but realistically, the bolt did all the work anyways. It was just nice for if you set the motor in there, it's gonna rest on those, so the bolts will go through easily. Does it matter? No. Because realistically, the bolts are gonna still tighten up, and all the weight is on those, just like they would be from before, right? So I got a little gap in the back, but guys, that's how you LS swap a damn OBS, right? Just that easy. All right, so all our bell housing bolts are in. We even, look at this, guys. Tell me it ain't meant to be when you see the random hole on the transmission line up with the oil pan, right? See how dirty that is? Never a bolt there. Lined up, and that there's easily, you can stick a quarter through there. Plenty of room, don't you worry. But we got 5 out of 6, just like we said, and then we went ahead and used the factory studs from GM on the LS trucks. And this guy here is gonna fit on there too to protect our starter wires from the freaking, you know, the heat. How awesome is that? So we're gonna go ahead, and we do have to use the nuts as well, because them are 8125 instead of 5/16 now. But look at the pan clearance. That is literally, I mean, right there. We got tons of room there, tons of room around the differential. It's like they mold it right for it. And now this is a Gen 3 pan. I've never tried a Gen 4 pan, may or may not fit, I don't know. Gen 3 pan for the freaking win. Tons of room. So we gotta go up there. We do have to snug our motor mounts down. Like we said, I wanted to get everything sandwiched together first. That's what's cool about this. It allows us to set it down and slide it back. So whoever came up with that, you're a hell of a guy, or gal, of course. All right, one of those cool things that are good information as well. So ICT Billet, of course, to the rescue, because they have everything, which is awesome. Thank you, guys. So the oil pressure sensor, they have a bushing that goes from the LS to 1/4 inch NPT, which is what the Vortec 350 had. So what you can do, put that adapter in, basically a bushing, right? Put your factory gauge in, and it's gonna work. We're gonna use a 3-wire coolant temp sensor, so we'll get to that soon. That came out of a 98 Camaro. I don't know why 98 Camaro only, but if you look up 3-wire coolant temp sensor for LS, it's pretty straightforward. So basically what that is 2 go to your computer like the normal, you know, the LS, the black and the yellow, and then there's a green wire that goes to the factory coolant temp on the dash. So that'll get that gauge working. So we'll have oil pressure. We'll have the oil pressure, the coolant temp, and then we should be able to piggyback the tack wire from the old computer and get our tack working as well. So we're gonna go through some of that wiring stuff later. We're gonna get this stuff buttoned up here for you here fairly soon. All right, guys, next day. Today's Friday. We're gonna get the video out today for you, but I wanted to go through a couple things before we get back to thrashing. So we talked about that other coolant temp sensor earlier. I mentioned it briefly, but I wanted to show you what it was. So this is a 3-wire coolant temp sensor, 1998 Chevy Camaro with a LS1. I'll give you a standard part number as well. So it is a TX111. Benefit of that, it'll run your factory gauges on these early GM vehicles. You know, we've used these back to my buddy Jeremy's 93 Indianapolis Pace truck we did. We've used this on an S10 Blazer before, so definitely a cool trick. Another thing I wanted to show you real fast, so now we're gonna get into the cooling system. I know I'm jumping around everywhere, but it's important things, guys. 4 Seasons 84520, the benefit of that. So this is one of those things that is controversial. And people are gonna say this or that, and it's fine. But when you are running your LS, you have the steam port, right? Let me see if I got one laying around here. Oh, I just seen one of those darn things. Anyways. Ah, here, wait, nope, hold on. We're gonna find it. Here we go. I got shit everywhere. Like all those bolts I just threw on the ground. Oh, Jesus, there we go. So, this is your steam port for an LS. Basically, this connects, if you're unfamiliar, cylinder head to cylinder head, right? Just like that. So that guy there, you got to put that somewhere. Well, in a factory Chevy truck, that goes right to the radiator over here. If you watch my recent radiator video, you'd see that. So what we're gonna do is gonna run it into the heater hose. You just basically need a spot for it to evacuate any air bubbles to help purge out any sort of, you know, that type of stuff. So this thing here is a heater hose T that we found. Let me open it up real fast. It is 5/8, 5/8, and then 1/4 inch, okay? So what that allows us to do is retain the water pump, retain everything factory, and then we just put a couple extra hose clamps on it. The intake is it's kind of a build-a-bear. So if you guys are familiar, and I'll give you a quick rundown. So this is a 99 intake. By all means, we're gonna clean it up. The WD-40 trick works wonders, guys. Future reference. But 99 intakes have a big gaping hole right there for EGR. So we're not putting EGR on this truck. It's, you know, we're not here for that debate. But anyways, so what you do is you get yourself a newer intake, a 2004-5 drive-by cable or wire style, and they don't have that provision. So you ask yourself, like, Brian, how the hell do you hook up the throttle bracket? Because there's no, you know, so like right here, throttle bracket would bolt there, right? You look at this one, those are empty, right? They didn't cast in the nutserts. So a 6x1.0 nutsert, let me see, I should have some left. And yeah, right here. So basically, some of these dudes, and then you get your riv nut tool, put them right in, boom, you come out your throttle bracket. Then we're doing away with the EGR, and then also we're gonna show you something special with the intake air temp sensor. All right, we're gonna fit these heater hoses, got our water pump on. And I mean, this stuff here, once you guys see this layout, it's like these trucks are meant to have these engines in them. It's awesome. All right, so we were talking about the power steering line. So this truck had the electronic variable assist. Not anymore, because that is computer controlled. The computer system we're using is not using that. There is LS trucks that have it, not the system we got. But if you get yourself a 96 four-wheel drive Chevy truck hose, it's the same thing minus that. And you can see the bend in the line here wraps right around the pump, just like factory. Okay, so got our intake like we were talking. And so the intake air temp sensor is the one out of the vortec 350. It's just in the in your air cleaner assembly. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put that in where the purge valve was. Like I said, we are going speed density. That's why we only need this and not the MAF, which is mass airflow sensor. So obviously you're gonna clean this out after the fact. Get your 1/2-inch drill bit, just hog her out. Once you get her cleaned up in there, got your guy here, and I know this may not be right to some of you, and it'll be fine. We're just, silicone and gas doesn't work, trust me, but just a skim coat, almost, probably more for a lubricant than, there's always time for lubricant, than I guess than to seal the damn thing, but you put that on there. Just a little skosh. I didn't say this is right. This is what I'm doing. Get your hammer, go ahead and tap her in. All right, get your drill, and you want to just step these up a little bit. and it ain't a ton. And you're not actually drilling through. You just want to open the hole up a little bit. And then you can take your nut certs like we showed you earlier. And these are 6x1.0, or riv nuts, whatever you want to call them. Go ahead and tap those in. Get your riv nut tool. You can get these things on Amazon for like, I don't know, I think this was like 40 bucks or 60 bucks, something like that. And that basically swedges it. All right, so now, that was all. So we can put this bracket on. So we took a drive-by wire intake and made it fit a drive-by cable, and then we don't have the EGR provision, so you guys can do it. So you're thinking to yourself, this intake looks like hell. Well, that's what brake clean does when you spray this plastic. It almost makes it chalky. So get your WD-40 out. Just spray her down, wipe her up, it looked like brand new. Well, we made some progress. I got a couple things off camera. I just threw the tensioner on, and oh, you've seen the bracket. The intake's just sitting on there. Just wanted to show you guys. I mean, realistically, we got like 8 hours into this thing, but I'm trying to get the video off for today for you guys. I think it's coming along very well. What do you think? I mean, we took a running driving 97 and made it not run yet. So we're gonna do another video on integrating the wiring harness and stuff. And the rest of the stuff here, I mean, really, we got the radiator to set in. I'll show you all that fun stuff here soon. But if you guys want to see more content like this, we do have the old S10 coming up. I think we're gonna LT swap it. Okay, don't tell nobody, but I got a 6.2 L86, which is a 14 to 18 6.2. And we might have some other goodies for it too. So, shh, don't tell nobody. But from me and the K1500 here, tune in for part 2. Hopefully, maybe it's either gonna be next Tuesday or next Friday. We're gonna see how it works out. I gotta see how much I can get wrapped up, because the wiring takes, you know, oh, what's the old saying? You know, now, you know, what 10% of the work takes 90% of the time, however that goes. But on that note, guys, we'll see you on the next one.